One is there's a major shift in the way people are thinking. A lot of people living in urban areas are growing a little tired of their lifestyles and are growing tired with the way they are, just following the mundane of parts of life.
Yeah.
So there's been a huge shift as we've seen in all aspects, which is, for example, consumption of food. So now people are moving towards more organic, eco-friendly sort of practices, as well as consumption of organic, and people are willing to pay a premium for this. And what we are realizing now is that the shift is coming to become into holistic lifestyle choices. So a lot of people are becoming aware. They weren't aware for a long time, and a lot of them still aren't aware that you can build green and you can build eco-friendly. The misconceptions generally are that, is it going to last a lifetime? And we generally are able to tell them that yes, it's going to last more than a lifetime, and these are, say, the benefits of it. But there's a huge shift in the way people think, and people want to now spend probably even a premium to create these eco-friendly homes for themselves, and it'll have a larger impact on the environment. So that's one major shift, I would say,
right, for
sure.
Now,
another thing is when it comes to the finance part of it, it's a myth sometimes that because it's natural and eco-friendly, it has to be cheaper. For example, a lot of the arts and the skills and the crafts that are used in creating natural buildings, they're dying arts. So a lot of effort is going into sort of reviving or making sure that it continues in a certain way. And this is labor intensive. So while it is not necessarily cheaper, you know for sure that any money going in, any capital going into your building is going straight into the hands of the people making it for you, and other than going into, say, companies and corporates and cement companies, etc.
Areen,
yes.
Now let me ask you the real million-dollar question here.
Okay.
It's also about the payback period, which has become shorter, hasn't it, over the last 10 years?
Well, yes. But just for some more clarity, when you say payback, are you talking about
of all the the material that you use,
right?
For which you have to pay a premium.
Yes.
Okay, when you buy something green, okay, for your green building or
right.
green construction.
Right.
But the payback period, in the sense that in about earlier it used to be 12 years, 13 years for your cost to be recovered.
Yeah.
Right. Now that has come down to 2 years and 3 years. I mean,
sure.
That's what I believe, because that's what the industry talks about.
Yes, there are subsidies, I think, to help with solar, and the idea is to bring down this payback. However, our definition of
has the cost of material also gone down in the time in the.
So this is where the question would have certain layers, which I'll try and answer
okay,
to.
Okay.
So one is in terms of pure building material cost.
Yeah.
Now, when we work and all our architecture that we work with, we source the locally available natural materials on site, and we try and use that as a primary building material for construction. Now, a lot of cases, for example, we excavate the soil itself from the site, or if there's stone, we excavate the stone, and we use that as a primary building material. So actually the cost of material for us in terms of our architecture solution is minimal. The cost of actually labor to make that material usable, to design the material, we compare it with a recipe for cooking, because every site you have to come up with a new material design. So the labor factor in this case is where the cost would come in. And then a lot of the payback related questions are to do with the auxiliary, more holistic functions, which is in terms of solar, in terms of waste disposal, in terms of wind energy, etc. So in these cases, what we also do is we hire consultants who then would be able to give us a more clearer picture as to the paybacks in terms of, say, solar or wind energy, etc.
In this case, we will get into the specifics of solar waste disposal as well as water sourcing of water. But when it comes to labor, how much does the labor cost differ in various parts of the country? Because you have done it in Maharashtra, I guess you have done it in Nepal too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
So how does labor cost differ? Because it's not just about construction. it's all about building something, making something, especially for that project. So how does labor cost differ?
Like if I had to compare apples to apples, like a mason in Bombay will cost about 500 to 700 depending on how skilled he is. But
700 rupees per day.
Per day. I'm talking about per day. And even more skilled would probably cost 1,000, 1,200 depending on how skilled and experienced he is.
What kind of material that they make?
I am talking about masons from civil masons, talking about brick and cement, to carpenters, to painters, to almost all of them. But in cities, generally these people are more competent, they're more efficient because they're here to, and they know that there's strong competition, so they try and do their best. As against to people in peri-urban or rural areas, the labor varies from 250 to 350 rupees a day. And even for masons could be probably 500-600. I'm talking about the really skilled, like I'm talking about the stone masons. This equivalent of whom you're paying 1,000-1,200 in the city, you'll be paying 500-600 in rural areas. But over there, they are a little more laid back, less competent.
So the efficiency is down.
The efficiency is down. So more or less, I would say the overall outcome, when you have to measure that, it's probably more or less equivalent in terms of labor costs.
But the efficiency is also down because of sometimes unaccounted for factors, like there's a village wedding in the village. Everyone has to attend because if I don't attend this wedding, they won't attend my wedding or my children's wedding. So for 3 days, sometimes 4 days, 5 days, there won't be any work. They won't show up, and it's a very it's pretty unpredictable as to what can happen. So it's really important to actually understand your labor, understand also how to give work so that they're always at your site. They always have work. If the day comes where they don't have work, they just shift to a new site, and then it would take a long time to get them back. And that's a huge setback in terms of your work actually.
These are all the dynamics of various places which you will never learn from the school. Right?
Absolutely, and you will be in the face of it. You'll reach site. You'll make a visit from Bombay to, we've gone to Udaipur. We have 3 days as a target because you take out time from your schedule, and you realize that nothing has happened for the first 2.5 days because they just don't turn up for some reason or the other, or so you have to deal with these unpredictabilities. And
there was an architect in Mumbai. He was telling me that he got a project in Goa, and there they have a practice that the workers, labor, everybody would take an afternoon nap. So it's all very local.
It is, and in for example, in a project in Manali, you would have to pay labor in different ways. There'll be the labor who will just be assisting the masons. Then there'll be the labor who are called carriage. They will transfer material from one place to another. They will do it at another rate. Then there'll be labor for any odd jobs. So you're actually paying different rates to different people.
But then when it comes to estimating the cost, especially for an end user, there will be an end user in the sense it could be a homeowner who is building a home, or it could be a developer in a gated community who is building various units to sell. In that case, how will your cost estimates work?
So what we do is
it's a huge challenge because first of all, the material is not that it has standard rates. So earth, if you get it from the site, it's free. If you have to buy it from outside, you pay a little bit, though it's not too expensive. But even that can vary from region to region.
Yeah, in Alibag, for example, even if you excavate earth from your own site, you pay royalty.
That you have to do everywhere. So it's not just about Alibag. But that could vary. So it's the variables are so high that it is very very difficult to kind of give you an exact cost. So what we work on the higher limit, and we give an estimate based on that. Yes, it involves a lot of work for us as architects because we have to do like a huge survey or a study of where the project is based on what are the labor rates there.
Shahveer, there is also, I was about to come to that about surveys. In India, we don't have yet got much of surveys done by third party.
No, we have to do it ourselves. Yes. So we have to go ask the rates around, ask what materials are available. So if we see in a village that they've built stone foundation, so we know that someone in this village knows how to do it. Find that guy, ask him how much he charges, how he works, how many stones can he make a day, what other help will he need, how many assistant laborers will he need to do that. So it involves a lot of that study before we can even come to the cost of a building.
And that's also very random. When they talk, they always talk as if they can finish everything in like 5 days, and then but it's never true.
So
very true, very true. I can understand that. Also the fact that when you talk about these things being so different in different places, and you have no connection over there. With all these trouble, then why did you actually start a?
This is a great question, and we ask ourselves this from time to time, every other day.
Yeah. Because otherwise, architects are quite well off. They can get so much of.
I think we are from that millennial generation. We have, like you said, the 12 to 14 minute video. So we have very short attention span. So we get bored very easily. Like that's why most people having office jobs are so frustrated, because they're so bored of their regular, mundane, everyday repeating the same thing. So I think that's what keeps us excited, and that is why we are still here after so many years, even though maybe say monetarily or financially it's not like a great business in that way.
But tell me one thing, is there that possibility in India where you can integrate your solar system with the grid?
I think there is a huge possibility, especially in gated communities.
Companies pay the.
It's not yet been implemented, but there have been talks that have been happening. But if it gets implemented, it'll be a great boon, because it takes away the need for batteries, which is a huge recurring cost and a big environmental hazard after the battery has served its life.
So, and what is your suggestion of batteries today? Is it the good old batteries which are
the lead acid batteries?
Lead acid, or
those are the ones that have been used. But I think lithium ion is the next step. But lithium ion is still a very rare earth metal. So
the cost is very high.
Cost is very high, and it's rare, and it could become a problem on a larger scale. Right now the scale is not that big. It's just our phones and all that have it, and Tesla. But other than that, I think it could become a problem if it becomes large scale. I mean, the idea is to avoid the batteries altogether. As a whole,
altogether. Is that possible?
That's what I said. When you have a solar which is attached to the grid, so if you're manufacturing 300 units, if you end up wanting 50 units extra, you consume it from the grid. But if you're consuming lesser and you have 50 units extra, you're supplying to the grid. So you're contributing and also consuming.
But in the advanced countries, you also get paid for it. Here, the companies paid?
No, not yet. It's not been implemented. But you only get offsetted for whatever is surplus.
And how about the subsidy on solar? Is that working?
There are subsidies, but I don't know.
It doesn't work? Because there are complaints that it used to, but now the subsidies are not working at all. Because
the government, I think
you can apply for it and you don't get it.
Clients have told me, they are not very enthusiastic in giving subsidies. They kind of give reasons like, it's a private use, so we only give for public use subsidies, and they make some excuse like that when it's not, even though it's not true. This is what Vishal had said.
Okay. Now, when it comes to water sourcing, how do you all manage water sourcing, especially in the rural countryside? Because water has been a huge issue. Even Bollywood stars are now getting involved in water conservation. So, how do you actually deal with water conservation?
It is a huge issue, and it needs to be addressed large scale, actually, urgently. Some of the things that we do is we look at, first of all, rainwater harvesting systems. Within the design, we try and incorporate that, and there are many such systems.
How efficient is that?
Well, I think it's extremely efficient. It depends on where you are and what kind of system you adopt. So generally we have water specialists who would come on site and advise us as to what would be the most appropriate system of conservation. So there are systems where you would actually recharge the water table. That would have a larger environmental impact rather than collecting everything and reusing that. So if it's very sloped, if there are huge runoffs, then what you would do is you would dig a few trenches along the contour lines and let the water percolate into the ground, and then you would have a well or something.
That's what that Amir Khan's program did,
right?
Rural Maharashtra.
Yes. I think so.
It was supposed to be a huge success. He did it in one village.
Sure. So there are these kind of systems. I know that people are adopting, and we are also trying to adopt. One of the biggest challenges is how do you deal with Borewells. Actually, a lot of people think that Borewells are the solution to everything, and so what tends to happen is that everyone digs a borewell on their
and nobody
side,
gets water,
and nobody gets water eventually, and it doesn't make sense actually. If you are
so what's the solution for that?
I think our understanding is that you have to have a borewell and then a certain radius where there is no borewell, if at all you are boring.
And the water should be shared.
And the water should be shared, exactly, from a common point. So that's not happening. People are trying to
have their own independent.
And literally when the plots are small, then it doesn't make sense at all. So water does need to be looked at a little more holistically than it is at the moment.
Now, can you give us a case study of how you solved water in a particular project, in any of your projects that
Well, there's one. I wouldn't say we have. It's only water, but for example, we've done some toilets at Sanjay Gandhi National Park in Borewells. So we designed bamboo toilets for the women of one village, and the way we have designed the system of, actually it's not water but it's to do with waste management. It's to really reduce the water consumption. It's the system is a little more complicated, so I'd have to explain through a drawing, etc. And eventually it sort of percolates into the soil after 2 treatment pits, and they're like leach pits, so they slowly leach into the ground, and then we are left with compost. So it's not directly water systems, but it's more to do with soil water and wastewater in this case.
I had seen a documentary on wastewater management in which I think in Pune they have done this. You make it go through 2 or 3 tanks and then finally.
Yeah, for wastewater it's really easy actually. You try and follow whatever the natural process of filtration is. So for example, you let the water pass through different sized obstacles. So first you have your larger stones.
True.
Then you go through the next pit, which comes to gravel, and then the next pit essentially is sand, and you can have 2 fine sand and also coarse sand.
Okay.
And when it passes through the sand, then it's filtered enough for it to be used in your auxiliary functions. So and then you can grow things from these reed beds, etc. So it's actually very easy to filter.
But how much is it potable? Potable in the sense how much is you can drink from the waste?
Drink, I'm not
would
so
not
sure
drink
of,
that,
but for landscaping and for your flushing needs, it's
There was an architect in Bangalore who told me that all the water that we have today is recycled. There is no manufacturing of new water. What goes into a toilet, it goes up and then comes down again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible, but it's like
it's possible.
Yeah,
it is
but
possible.
I am not sure how. Like as of today, whether people are so comfortable you doing it.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible. It's very much possible. Because nature does it, so I'm sure we can learn from nature and implement it.
And what about the toilets? See, there was another issue which you talked about water in toilets. There was this huge plan of the government to build so many toilets in the rural India.
Right.
But then the problem is about water.
Yeah.
Some people have converted those toilets into kitchens.
No, one of the projects we were working on before we started, actually, I was working in Bihar and part of Hunarshala and their team, which was to do with the Kosi floods rehabilitation. Okay. And what they tried to do for the toilets, the money that was allocated for the toilets, was that they built eco sand toilets. Eco sand is essentially dry toilets, so they compost toilets. You do your business. It's an Indian style, so you squat, you do your business, you walk a little forward, and then you wash. So you're separating your dry and your wet.
Right.
When your dry is separated, it actually doesn't smell.
You can make it into compost.
You can make it into compost. So you cover it with some ash or some sawdust, and then 6 months you use this till it fills up.
You can use coir, right?
You can. Yes, there are lots of things that actually can be used to cover. 6 months you use this, gets covered, and then you have in the same bathroom you use the opposite side. So in those 6 months this becomes compost while you use this and fill this up. Then this becomes, let this rest for 6 months. This is compost, you empty it out.
Usually it takes about 6 months for it to become compost.
That's the calculation and the size of the pit, depending on
and
that.
then you can sell that compost, or it can be used in your.
You can use it in your farm. You can use
yeah.
it in your farm. Yeah. But the challenge is getting people to use it strictly.
But it won't. I mean, to put it bluntly, it won't be shit anymore.
No, it does not.
It'll be just like earth.
Yeah. Exactly, it is earth. Yeah.
So there's no problem in digging it up and.
No, not at all. There's no problem in people accessing it. The challenge is how strict you are when it comes to using it. So you have to make sure the water.
The water is what activates
separate.
the bacteria and the pathogens.
Yes.
So that's what makes it smell and.
So that's the challenge that, especially in India, we face, because everyone is used to washing. So you need to, just make sure that you're strict that no water goes down there, and then you're good. Then you're really good.
Actually, the challenge is somewhere else. Should I say?
Sure.
Again, this architect from Bangalore, he was telling me that the problem is when you sit to shit, you also piddle.
Yeah.
So then, how do you make it?
So they have
the
a
way your is designed is it's like a ridge like that in the center. So yeah, you have to sit in the right position to make sure that they both
dry and wet.
So there are two separate holes. So there one for your urine and
solid and one
yes.
for urine. But does it work for both males and females?
Yeah,
it does. Yeah, it does. It does. But again, it's a little tricky. That's the challenge. It is not.
Where have you seen this in compost toilets put in practice?
In Auroville?
Yeah, so I mean the project I mentioned.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in Borewells it's quite common.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I saw it first in my life.
Same, yeah. But we incorporated it in the rural infrastructure programs where it was hit and miss. Some people used it really well. Some people didn't know how to use it at all.
But then what happens if the wet is mixed up? Becomes miserable?
It would not be good, yeah. Not miserable, but it's really avoidable.
Okay. Now let's come to the last point. It's about waste disposal. That is solid waste as well as liquid waste. Now in that case, especially in rural projects, how do you manage waste disposal? This also in the context of how BMC is now asking individual housing societies in Mumbai to manage their own waste disposal.
Yes.
So how does that happen in rural India?
That's a big challenge actually in rural India and even parts of urban India, not just rural India. There's no proper waste disposal systems. There's no proper segregation done. There are people making efforts, and I think the government is also making some effort towards proper waste disposal. But the primary idea is consume less first. Try and not consume things which are environmentally harmful. Now a lot of, for example, Maharashtra has done phenomenal to ban plastic bags, but we need to also ban PET bottles. They're a ridiculous waste hazard. So we need to act on
there is
these
effort
things.
for that PET bottles where the government has put that
to recharge
your water bottle at the stations.
And there also some people are collecting it and they're recycling. But consumption should be avoided in the first place. The second is segregation of waste is really important. You segregate wet and dry waste. More than half your battle is already done.
Because India still is more than 50% wet waste than dry, as against the western side of the world.
Like our food.
Sorry?
Just like our food.
And this wet waste converts to compost really fast. In urban areas as well, there are lots of companies who provide solutions how to create your own compost in your own homes. And in rural areas, it's just about composting pits, and there are different types of compost that people do, vermicompost or just regular anaerobic, aerobic compost. So creating compost is really easy. It's about less consumption, and then the correct segregation, and then how do you recycle. India actually has a very good recycling system. We have, for example, not many people know, but Sakari Bandar in all Bombay, everywhere in Bombay, they collect Tetra Packs and they recycle it into roofing sheets, which we've actually used in one of our projects. So it's great for everyone to go and just collect these Tetra Packs if they are using it, and Sakari Bandar picks it up and they do a great job in recycling. But people don't know this, so they throw it and they don't do anything about it. So challenge, I think it's awareness and
Yeah, I think mainly in rural especially it's about awareness, because the business of things brings all these materials to the village, but once it's been consumed there is no one really to take it all back because there's no value to it anymore. So first is about awareness of consumption, and that plastic flying around in your village is a problem, and later it could become a bigger problem if you don't deal with it now.
Yeah, I know there are people who just burn it because they don't know what to do with it, and that's not good, and they use it for fuel actually.
See, I'll tell you, just got 2 minutes left. Now, the thing is that in a project like Magarpatta in Pune, it's a township. So what they do is that they collect all the solid waste and they make it into gas and then produce electricity for captive use.
Sure.
Actually, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's just a small ground.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that you need big machinery and all that. It's
You
a
don't.
small thing.
Biogas is really easy to produce. Yeah, very easy.
And easier for cooking than even electricity.
Achha.
So whatever little equipment you need for electricity, you don't need. You just need one pipe, literally connect it to your gas stove, and you can use it for cooking.
It is very easy. Actually.